Good morning. My name is Ellen Forsyth. I work at the State Library of New South Wales. I acknowledge that I am hosting this seminar from the lands of the Gadigal and Wangal people of the Eora Nation, and it is on their land that the State Library of New South Wales stands. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all work today and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this seminar. I pay my respects to elders past and present and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. Please include the names of your traditional custodians in the chat. That would be great. Thanks. Now, this seminar came about because we'd not had a seminar focusing on games for a while, and it seemed timely to have one. There are annual seminars in 2010, 2011, and 2012, with some other programs like a Dungeon Master Trading Day as well. Some of you may have participated in some of these, and to others, it may feel like ancient history. Now, this is not the first online game seminar, although it is the first we've held in Zoom. The first one in 2010 was a half-day seminar in World of Warcraft in a library, in a guild called Where is the Library? This screenshot is one of the few kind of remaining pieces of evidence of that. The libraries you'll hear from today share their games information on social media. I realise this skews the grouping, but I figured it's a place to start. This is a day with board games focus, although there are other games involved. Please use chat to ask questions, and you can use the options shown under the emotions button as well to provide applause, feedback, and later on, raise your hand. So we'll start the day with Australian board games designers. I'll hand over to Joey Games.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Phil Walker-Harding, and it's great to see you all here. I'm a board and card game designer. I've been working in board game design for about 15 years now, and sort of full-time for about 7-ish years. My most famous game you might have heard of, if you've heard of any of them, is Sushi Go, which is a little card game, I'm seeing some nods. That's lovely. So I am a board game designer, and but more importantly for today, I'm also the co-founder of Joey Games, which is a new Australian company. And we're all about making games about Australia for kids and adults to play together. So I'm really happy you've invited me along just to chat a bit about our games, but also about sort of how I see a little bit how perhaps games can be really valuable in the library setting. So it's pretty exciting to see so many people here just to talk about board games. That's great. So what I thought I would do is share my screen, because I have a little presentation I've made. Hopefully you can all see that. So first, I just wanted to just briefly introduce who we are. So we're Joey Games, and we're dedicated to making board games about Australia, so with Australian themes. And we're also really committed to making games for kids, but particularly games that promote intergenerational play between kids and adults. So a lot of kids games, adults kind of grit their teeth to get through when they play with kids. At least that's my experience sometimes. So we wanted to make games that all ages can actually enjoy together. So here's just some of the things we believe and some of the things we hope our company can do. Where we want to share our love for people and the planet through playing games. So when you kind of have been in an industry for a while and you're doing okay, you start to think, what could I give back? And I guess Joey Games is part of me starting to think, I want to share some of my love for people and my love for this planet we have through this company. So that's kind of, it's a bit of a midlife thing that I'm going through. And me and my wife, Meredith, sort of started this company during lockdown. So it was also a bit of a lockdown, what does it all mean project. So we're hoping this is something that we can kind of do for our community. So we believe play is an essential part of living a healthy, balanced, and restful life. So we think playing games is actually a really good thing to do. It hits pause on life and helps you unwind. But it's not doing nothing. It's not binging TV. It's doing something. It's playing. And so that's why games, I think, are so important for all ages, but particularly kids as they develop. And as I said, we're also really focused on intergenerational play between kids and adults. So as we test our games and as we develop our games, we're looking for games that kids love, of course, but also that the adults who play with the kids enjoy them too and get to connect interpersonally as they play. And then finally, we design our games to celebrate the people, plants, and animals of Australia and foster an understanding and care for them. So Joey Games is really committed to representing our nation in a really positive, winsome, loving way, not cringy Australiana, but in a way that actually helps people kind of enjoy and celebrate this beautiful place where we live. So before I get into our games, I wanted to just share some resources with you that I've come across about using board games in libraries. So this obviously is not this is your area of expertise, not mine. But being in the hobby board game space, I do hear this topic being discussed a lot. And there are certain resources that I've come across that seem really great and really useful to me, particularly to do with board games specifically. So I just wanted to share these. You may know these already, you may not, but I just thought this could be useful. So the two kind of websites I sort of have heard of are the American Library Association's Games and Gaming Roundtable, which is like a whole big thing over there, but they do have like a really good website with lots of resources, links to articles and videos about using games in libraries really well. And yeah, it's something I've heard about because, I know they've interacted with kind of the hobby designer space a little bit. So my looking through their stuff looked really positive, like their resources look great. And the other one is a podcast and blog called Games in Schools and Libraries, which is actually started by an Australian fellow, Giles, but is now hosted by other folks and looks at all different aspects of how to use games in schools and libraries as well. And these people know their stuff. They know modern board games really well. So I really recommend that podcast to you. And then two books I thought I would mention as well are these. Libraries Got Game, this, that's a fun title. And Everybody Plays at the Library. Everyone Plays at the Library. And again, both of these books are by people who are very much in the kind of modern board game space, really reputable scholars and reviewers and designers in their own right. And both these books I totally recommend if you're thinking more about how board games can be specifically used in different ways in libraries. Again, you may have heard of these, or you may not, but these are the ones that, from my perspective, jumped out as, these are the resources I would totally want to share with interested people. Just so you know, I have a PDF of all of these resources. I'll pop in the chat at the end if you want to keep the resources. So, okay. The next thing I wanted to share, because I didn't just want to come on here and plug our own products, like an ad, is I wanted to share two other publishers that I just wholeheartedly recommend as companies making amazing games that I would not hesitate to recommend almost any of them as great games to have, particularly if you're thinking of a younger audience or intergenerational play. So the first one is Harbor, who is a wonderful German company, but their games are all available in English, and they just make amazing, tactile, interesting games for kids. They're always recognizable by their bright yellow boxes and really fun components, but they're also the games that heaps of adults won't admit that they love playing by themselves because they're just so cool. So Harbor Games is a great company to explore. And just, they always have good table presence. So they're the sort of games that when people see them being played, they come over, they watch, they get engaged, and they get often dragged into a game. So the Harbour USA would probably be the website and the kind of main part of the company you'd want to interact with. That's their main sort of English speaking wing, Harbour USA. And then the other company is GameRight. So they publish Sushi Go, which is my game, but they also do Sleeping Queens and Rat-a-Tat-Cat and Forbidden Island and Forbidden Desert, which are all fantastic games, which similarly to Harbour have amazing table presence and manage to somehow straddle that line of just a really wide audience, from quite young all the way up to just anyone. So GameRight's another company I would totally recommend to you. They're an American company that if you're just looking for games to just have, GameRight and Harbour would be two I would totally recommend. And they both have really great ethoses as well about their games kind of being educational in the sense that they teach kids skills and they teach kids ways to think and engage, but not in the sense that, oh, here's a trivia game or here's a maths game or here's a learn trigonometry game. They're just games, but they're geared towards kind of like really healthy outcomes for kids. So there you go. And I've got heaps of these games in my collection. I love them. I play them as an adult as well. So they're not just for kids by any stretch. Okay, so now I thought I'd tell you a little bit more about our games. So when we started Joey Games, we looked at companies like Harbour and GameRight and thought, wow, that's what we'd really love to do. That sort of audience, that sort of style. However, they exist already, and we'd love to do something that kind of speaks into our culture, into our nation here in Australia. And I don't know about you, but I sometimes have a little bit of a funny relationship with Australian culture and thinking about what it means to be Australian and what is Australian culture even. And so the thought of starting an Australian company instantly for me, raised images of, well, do we need Paul Hogan to be our spokesperson? All these cliches come up and you think, no, we don't want to be that sort of Australian. We want to be something else. And when you look at the board games that we as a nation have kind of had, there aren't that many like that are like Australian made games about Australia. There are not that many. There's a few small Australian publishers doing great board games at the moment, which is wonderful. And there's also some other companies around the world who will occasionally theme a game about Australia. But there aren't many things which are Australian made and about Australia. So here are some from my past that I thought I would share with you. So the most famous Australian game, I guess, is called Squatter, which came out in the 60s, which is sort of like a Monopoly variant kind of thing about running a sheep station. And it was really popular in the 70s and 80s. And it's, it was a game of its time, but it feels very, very sort of dated when you play it today. It's very long. Like it has many of the things that make Monopoly, a bit problematic as well. For a lot of people, but it's also like awkwardly, colonial, set on stolen land, and is just I think an awkward theme to be Australia's classic game, which it is kind of marketed as. I mean, no offense to the Squatter folks, but yeah, it's one way of looking at our history. And I just kind of thought, oh, I'd love it if something else was Australia's own classic game and it wasn't just running a sheep station, and it took advantage of everything the industry has learned about game design in the last 50 years. So more recent games, I don't know if you played Oz Quiz in the 80s, but it came in an esky. And it was basically like Trivial Pursuit, but with Australian questions. And again, a bit of a knockoff of another game. And again, just really sewing into like pretty, even in, the 80s, I remember thinking, gee, this is a little bit on the nose, like about Aussie culture. So, and then of course, more recently, I won't say much about this, but there's Boganology. And again, like as Australians, sometimes I think we resort to sort of cringe culture moments when we think about who we are and what makes us Australian, which is really unfortunate, I think. So enough of, I don't mean to be too negative, but there isn't like a lot happening in this space. So that's what we hope Joey Games can do. So I want to just introduce you to our 3 launch games. So as I said, we've just started as a company. And so I just wanted to let you know what our 3 first titles are. And hopefully that'll give you a sense of who we are and what we're on about. So the first game is called Busy Beaks, and it's a card game about Australia's amazing bird life. And some of you may know the game, the book, Busy Beaks by Sarah Allen. It's a really popular kids book from a firm press, and we licensed it and her artwork to use in the game. So we were really excited that they were willing to partner with us. And basically, this is a card game. It's sort of similar. It's quite easy to play. It's similar to Rummy, if you've ever played Rummy, except you're collecting sets of birds to make flocks. And each bird also has a special ability in the game, which we've tried to kind of link up to that bird's personality and, you know, things that that bird does. There are 14 different types of birds in the game. And every time you play, you choose 7 birds, you shuffle them together, you make the deck, and you play a little game. So you learn a little bit about the birds as you go, but it's mostly kind of a fun set collection card game. So yeah, this is probably our most complex game. So we've listed it as ages 8 and up, but it's for 2 to 4 players and takes about 30 minutes. So that's Busy Beaks. The second game is called Pass the Party Food. And this is sort of our little fun nod to classic Australian party food. Because, you know, if you've traveled and talked to other people growing up in different parts of the world, you realize we do kids' parties really differently to other places. And we might not have realized we've developed our own little culture of kids' parties here. And so this is just a fun game we decided to set in 1989 at a kids' party where you're sharing classic Australian party food with your friends. So this is a cooperative game. So in this game, there isn't just one winner. You're not playing against the other people at the table. You're actually working together. So you all win or lose as a team. So this game's especially good for people who don't like fierce competition. Often when I talk to people who don't like board games, what they don't like is often that potentially when they were younger, but maybe still today, they play with people who get really fierce and competitive, and it just feels like, why are you being so intense? We're just playing a game. It doesn't matter who wins. You know, some people just don't click with that kind of presence at the table. And so we wanted to have one game in our launch title that was fully cooperative. So everyone plays together. So in this game, you're trying to score points as a team. And as you're scoring points and sharing the food together, there's a puppy running amok at the party named Ziggy, and he's knocking food off the table. And you need to get to the end of the scoreboard before Ziggy does. So you're all working together to try and sort of win this little race against Ziggy by scoring points, collecting sets of food, and sharing them with your friends. So this one's for ages 7 and up, and it's for 2 to 4 players, and takes about 30 minutes to play. And then the third game we've launched with is called Scribbly Gum. And this is a drawing game about Australia's scribbly gum trees. So I don't know if you've ever seen a scribbly gum tree, if they are in the bush near where you are, but they have beautiful scribbles on their bark, which are sort of drawn by baby moths burrowing through the bark for food. And I saw them when I was a kid, and I've always been fascinated by scribbly gums. And so when I started thinking about Australian themes that would make great games, it just popped up as something obvious to think about. So this is actually a drawing game. So each person gets a tree diagram, a sheet of paper in front of them, and you're actually drawing the scribbles on the sheet. So every turn, someone flips over one of those direction tiles that you can see, and it tells you which direction you can scribble a little line. And then at the end of that line, you pick up some food. So gum nuts or leaves or blossoms or water, and you're trying to collect the most valuable food. And this game is super easy to play. We've got it listed at ages 6 and up. But the reason I think it's particularly interesting for a library setting is because it can play any number of players at once. So it has simultaneous play. So every turn a tile is flipped, telling you which direction to draw, and then everyone simultaneously draws on their own sheet. So it's a little bit like playing a game of bingo. So you could have like 50 people all playing bingo at once. You could play Scribbly Gum with 50 people all at once, with one person calling out the tiles. We even have digital versions of the tiles on our website, so you can project the screen and play the game that way. So if you ever wanted to do a big gameplay event at your library, this would work really well for that. And it's also probably our simplest game, starting at ages 6 and up. So we've also tried to, we put a lot of work into our sort of branding and product design as well. We really want our games to be beautiful and not sort of toss off the design part of them just because they're sort of aimed at a younger audience. We think kids stuff should be really thoughtful and beautiful as products. So that's something we put a lot of work into as well. And I just wanted to, before I open up for questions, I just wanted to share a couple other things about us. So at Joey Games, we're really committed to running a sustainable company. In everything we do, we want to protect our planet and care for our communities. So we have these 3 pillars which sort of guide our business: people, planet, and play. So we want to care for people, care for the planet, and also promote intergenerational play in our product. So we've put a lot of work into our launch titles, producing them in the most sustainable way we can, which was heaps of work and meant we hired a sustainability consultant, and it meant we tried doing things quite differently to the way other publishers do them. And we're still learning, but we're trying to make games that don't trash the planet and games that promote healthy communities. And just a little bit more about us. So we're Phil and Meredith Walker Harding, and here's some of our stats. So if you want to get in touch with us, joeygames.com.au or info@joeygames.com.au. We're also part of the 1% for the Planet scheme, and we pay the rent, giving 1% of our profits to an Indigenous local organisation. And we also have Instagram and Facebook. So as I said, we're a new company. These are our launch titles. We have them, so you might be able to see them on the shelf behind me. We have advanced copies, but they're not available. We are trying to navigate post-COVID shipping. So they're on their way. We're hoping they will be available either December or January. And we would really love to share them with you when they're available. So please keep an eye on our website, keep in touch with us, join our mailing list if this interests you at all. Or if you just want to chat to me further about using games in libraries or what games I'd recommend, I'm always happy to take emails at info@joeygames. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say, but I would love, if it's okay, if people have questions. Probably chat's the best way to do that. Is that okay, Ellen, if we do questions in the chat?
And there's already a couple of questions coming through the chat as well. And people very complimentary about the games. Yes. One was asking, is the gameplay similar to a cartographer's? I'm guessing that's the Scribbly Gum game.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yes, so Cartographers, that's a really cool game. Cartographers is a bit more complex than Scribbly Gum. So while in Cartographers you're drawing kind of big shapes on a map, this is just drawing one line at a time. So it's a bit simpler, but yeah, very, very similar to that kind of roll and write or flip and write genre of games that's popular at the moment. Yeah.
And they also continue with the question, is it possible to buy extra game pads separately?
Yes. So with Scribbly Gum, we're making the tree diagrams available as PDFs for free. So we think it's probably the best approach is, if you've used up the pad that comes with the game, is to just print your own as you need them. You can also play the game digitally, so you could play it remotely over Zoom. You could even just use a PDF, the PDF of the map itself, and draw on it with the markup function of Acrobat or whatever program you use. So yeah, we're definitely making those diagrams available if you run out, for sure.
That's great. And someone did ask about where they can buy the games, but you've covered that. So it sounds like people should be getting on your mailing lists.
Yep. So we're going to start with, so direct orders will be the first thing from our website that will become available, but we're also building up partnerships with local retailers. So they will be in shops, but that'll just take a little bit longer. And we're particularly targeting kind of local, regional Australian shops. So hopefully they'll be in a place near you next year.
Sounds good. And there's also a question, do you have plans for games with 6 or more players other than the Scribbly Gums?
Definitely. Yeah. So high player count games are often a little bit harder to design. They're a little bit harder to get right. And they're a little bit harder to make it so not everyone's sitting around waiting for their turn. But definitely it's an area we want to get into more. So cooperative games and high player count games are two things totally on our list of important features to have. Yeah. We're sort of hoping roughly to put out a new game each year. We don't want to like flood the market with 50 games, but we want to be building a collection of games as well. So if all things go well, we'll be looking at putting out a new game approximately each year.
And it sounded like your reference to Squatter hit a sore point with at least one participant who'd had traumatic childhood experience with it. All the sheep died in the drought.
Yeah, it's a pretty heavy game in many ways. Lots of things can go wrong. And it's just interesting, I think. Like I've done a little bit of work thinking about the history of board games. And it's fascinating to me how powerfully they can shape a culture. Like through history, a few games have had this very powerful effect on the way a culture thinks about play and about the topic of the game. Monopoly would be our big one. So, I mean, how can if our most popular game that almost everyone knows the rules to and plays as a young child, if our most popular game is about bankrupting other people and trying to make profit off property, you know, that can't not kind of affect the way we think about the world, right? And about money and about profit. And yeah, Squatter is an interesting game in that, you know, it in one level is just telling a bit of an Australian story from another time. But yeah, it's kind of quite cutthroat and yeah, quite lucky and swingy, and you know, it's got some funny quirks in it that I'm sure communicate something to kids growing up. So we'd love just to put some healthy Australian stories into the world. And yeah, maybe not such colonial stories as well.
Sounds a plan. The questions come through. Do you have game suggestions for teenagers, as one library's got a teenage board club?
Yeah,
kind of like good ways of thinking about the world is the phrase used.
Yeah, well, once you get to teenagers, you kind of really open the door to, you know, most board games, really. Interestingly, at the moment, there's a really interesting thing happening in the board game design space with theme, where themes about conquest and colonization are kind of a bit on the outs, and there's a bit of a fad lately of like nature themed games. So if you've heard of Wingspan or Meadow, there's a whole lot of these, or Cascadia, which just won the Game of the Year in Germany. They're 3 games which are really fun, really well designed, and are just about celebrating a part of nature. But they're still great, interesting, interactive games with great gameplay. But you're not like blowing something up. So that's kind of cool. So they're 3 I would recommend for teenagers. Yeah, so Cascadia, which just won the board game of the year in Germany, incredibly accessible, easy to learn, almost anyone could play, but really fun sort of puzzly tile laying game. So that's one to check out.
Thank you. And another question, considering your emphasis on games created with Australian culture in mind, how much support is there for games created by First Nations people?
Yeah, so we're just starting out, but something we want to do and continue to do is build relationships with Indigenous creators. So we're already chatting to some Indigenous artists about illustrating some of our games. But we would also love down the track to partner with a First Nations designer to like build a game from the ground up with them, perhaps one which depicts something from Indigenous culture or history in a really cool way. So that's something we're looking into for the future, and we just want to do it really carefully and right. So we haven't launched with something quite like that, but we're building relationships in the background because that's something we'd love, really, really love to see. Yeah.
Any more questions coming for them? There's definitely a lot of positive comments and about various games. But yes, does anyone else have any more comments for comments or questions for Phil?
Would you like me to pop that resource document in the chat?
That would be terrific. That would be, yes. I think several, yes, it would be lovely to be able to look further at those, the game designs, but also the resources you've suggested.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's letting me.
If it's not working, you can always email it to me and then I can send it to everyone who's come online, and I'll get it to you later in the day just to let people know that I won't be sending it while we're actually in the seminar, because then that would just get a bit chaotic. Look, please join me in thanking Phil for telling us about both his games and the games from some other companies that you might think about for your library collections. That was fabulous. Thank you so much, Phil.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and all the best. Like, you're doing such a good thing. Like, I'm so encouraged.
Thanks, Phil. We look forward to seeing future games coming out from Joey Games.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks very much. Bye. So now we move from games designs, and they were very pretty, weren't they? Like, they looked really fun too. I love the Scribbly Moth one, looks a lot of fun. We're now going to move to what you're doing in your public libraries. So we'll hear from first Wayne McIntyre at Central Coast. So over to you, Wayne.
Hi, Ellen. Thanks for firstly, thanks to Phil for some great ideas and initiatives there. You actually touched on a few things that I'll be talking about as well, and thanks to Ellen and the State Library for having us. I have a screen to share, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that now, and then I'll bang on with it. Won't be a shake. All right, so just making sure that can be seen by everyone. Welcome. My name's Wayne McIntyre, and I'm part of the children and youth team with the Central Coast Library Service. I've been in the library game for about 10 years, but been playing games for all of my life. Here's my team leader, Daryl, who isn't here today, but he was instrumental in setting up our Games in Libraries program. So Games in Libraries is what we call all of our events and programs that are about tabletop gaming. And I guess the question is, how do we start? So we started in the before time. Prior to COVID, we had some success running a tabletop battle game called Kings of War by Mantic Games, and a rules light role-playing game we created in-house called Saga of Heroes, which was based on Dungeon Saga, also by Mantic Game, a little bit more Dungeons and Dragons themed, that one. During the COVID lockdown, we had several tabletop games that we ran from home via Zoom, including the Rangers of Shadowdeep, which is pictured there by Joseph McCullough, as well as a game that you may or may not have heard of, Dungeons and Dragons. So we ran a number of one-shots, which are sort of short, self-contained episodic adventures lasting about 3 to 4 hours that we played during lockdown over 2 separate sessions on consecutive days. And we use the 5th edition, which is the current, at least for the next couple of years, rule set for Dungeons and Dragons. But almost all of our adventures, monsters, encounters are created by us in-house. This type of game is referred to as homebrew by the community. We use the phrase library brewed in our marketing for this. So that was during lockdown, but what are we currently doing now that things are back to normal? So currently we run 2 separate D&D groups for ages 12 to 17. Each group plays on alternate weeks, 2-hour sessions, 1 in branch and 1 online via Zoom. Why Zoom, you ask, and not a virtual tabletop like Roll20? Well, the truth is our library has a Zoom account, and it's prudent for us to show that we are using it. Secondly, I think it sort of captures a bit more the feel of playing face to face. Do our players have to pay? The answer is yes, they do. The in-person sessions is $20 per term, and that's usually about 5 sessions. The online group does not pay, but that is due to us lacking a means to collect payment for an online group, where we're confident that there wouldn't be a decrease in the attendance if they were paying as well. In other words, we believe that the community can see that there's value for money in it. How much would it take to set one up in your library? Well, the basic rules for D&D at least were, and probably still are, available for free online. Dice can be rolled using an app, and the majority of D&D does take place in the imagination of the players. What else do we do in our libraries? Well, I'm glad you asked that, because we also have returned to Kings of War, which is a tabletop battle game. We currently run 1 monthly group at a library branch on a Saturday. That's between 2 and 2.5 hours, and the cost is $3 per session or $5 for the term. This is, as Phil mentioned, this is an all ages game. It's promoted as being cross-generational. So we've got adults, teens, and children, including a number of combinations of like parent and child playing together. And as time has gone on, we've actually seen some of the kids sort of get a bit older, and now they are not playing with dad, they're versing him in battles, which is nice to see. Participants are welcome to bring their own materials, but we do have a number of different armies that people can use. We also have a number of self-contained small tabletop gaming kits that we have themed around popular IPs. You can probably guess what this one is. It is the Harry Potter Wizard Tournament. And this one is Star Wars Tabletop Skirmish. These were created by us, but they're all based around the same core mechanics. In other words, the same basic rule set as Kings of War. The idea being that they can be transported to individual library branches in a small self-contained kit. And once you know how to play one of them, you will know how to play all of them. It's just instead of a lightsaber, it's a broadsword. They're also portable and easy enough for us to bring to community events, such as Central Coast Comic Con that we attended in May this year. And the tabletop games that we brought along were a sort of recognizable, visually striking thing that gave people a reason to come over to a library stand. We had around 320 interactions that day, and we actually even loaned out some graphic novels that we had originally just brought along as props for this, which was nice. In the past, we've done similar things at the Central Coast Lakes Festival, during Book Week at some local high schools, as well as even running a regular tabletop program at a local high school. That was prior to COVID, but open to it again. So the question on everyone's mind is, what will it cost to set up something like this in your library? The initial setup for something like Kings of War can potentially be high. For example, you need to get some armies for people to use. We've got 6, and they can retail for up to $100 each. You'll need some terrain, battlefield terrain like hills, forests, ruins, can range between $30 and $50 per piece, and you'll need at least a few for each table. You'll need some space, of course. The standard gaming table is 6 by 4 feet and requires physical space on each side for people to stand. The most important resource that you'll need is time, because almost everything that you buy will come unassembled and require staff time to make it event ready, as well as running it on the day. The good news is that it doesn't actually have to cost this much. For example, you can use fewer miniatures to represent a large number. You don't have to have 40 skeletons on a single board, you can just have 2 or 3 that represent a whole horde, or you can create smaller kits to use a smaller number of models. You can make your own terrain. You can cut hills using XPS foam just from Bunnings and paint it green. Buildings and houses, we've got a lot of those from discount craft stores. And trees, you can actually get a lot of really good quality model trees post-Christmas sales, as long as you don't mind a bit of snow on them. You can use a green sheet just over some folding trestle tables, which are a lot easier to move around than big heavy gaming boards, and the size is honestly pretty much close enough. And you can contact local gaming stores to see if you can get a good deal on materials. And of course, things like dice and tape measures can be purchased quite cheaply online. And don't be afraid of looking on eBay for secondhand stuff as well, which we've had a lot of success from. The thing that you're going to need the most, though, is going to be buy-in from the staff and the community and management. So this question will inevitably come up. Why are you playing games in the library, and what is the point of doing it? So it's good to have an answer ready to go for these kind of questions. When you're called upon to justify a Games in Libraries program or even a single event, the same basic information can apply, whatever group is asking it. It's just the level of detail and the emphasis that you give can vary. For example, recreation. There's a shift in the understanding of what a public library is. And I think personally it's a good thing, and that is to provide a recreational services as part of the core offerings. By offering something that the community actually wants to engage with in the library, you can help groups that are traditionally reticent to actually visit a library. For example, in our case, young adults are difficult to get in. You can get them coming to the library in the first place. And while there are plenty of benefits to reading fiction, which is certainly in our service, I'm assuming in most of you as well, by far the most borrowed type of material which you have there, the primary reason is that people want to read for fun. They want to do it and enjoy it. By having fun events at your libraries and programs, then you can show the community that you are prepared to offer them what they want, so that you're relevant to them. You can give people a reason to visit the library, especially in groups that might not otherwise have a reason to visit. And while they're there, they may well find something else that they're interested in, but wouldn't have otherwise known about. And you can create long-lasting relationships with the community. Once they come in for something fun, they're more likely to keep on coming back. You can build relationships with local suppliers who may give you a discount, but if not, many councils have a priority to support the local economy and local businesses, and library attendance and sourcing things locally is a great aspect to lean into when you are promoting this program to management. But what about the educational outcomes, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked that, because tabletop games are ultimately about critical thinking. It's about assessing, analyzing situations, potential possibilities in order to complete a challenge, whether it's against other players or it's against the game itself. Is a case of learning how to do something rather than just learning what you have to do in a certain situation. Arguably, this is the one skill to rule them all. Gaming has the advantage of challenging players in a fun and also a safe environment where you can explore fictional situations without real world consequences. The skills that you develop through doing this, experiential learning or learning through doing, and in this case, we hope at least that it's something that you actually want to do. And this is a concept that's embraced by educational institutions in the 21st century as well. So you can debrief during and post gaming. You know, what would you have done differently? How did you expect your opponent to react to that move, and so on? And of course, tabletop gaming also promotes aspects of numeracy, from calculation and probability to determine the success of actions. And even when players don't know that they're developing these skills, they're certainly employing them in their games and their decision making. And we found that this aspect is a good one to emphasize when you are promoting the programs to parents and indeed to library colleagues. Creativity is ultimately what it's all about, and programs allow participants to sort of flex their creative muscles via gaming and to create memorable experiences that might not be available in other media, such as a crossover here between Elsa and He-Man. Some examples: we've had one participant begin writing stories based on her fortnightly Dungeons and Dragons adventures. This is without any prompting from us, turning the sessions into a sort of narrative tale as her group went along. We write the chronicles of our monthly Kings of War sessions, where we turn the results into a fictional history for our own gaming world. And our D&D sessions also are set in this same made-up world. So there's potential for sort of different groups from different sessions, or even playing different games, to all have an effect and influence one another's experience. Now, not everyone wants to play this way, which is totally fine, but we can use the results regardless, and the participants can be as involved as much or as little as they want. One thing in particular that happened not too long ago, but it's a good story. We had a local high school teacher coming in, attending Kings of War, who was primarily there to learn how the game operated, what were the rules, how the dice rolls works, and we discussed with them how these rules could be adapted into different ways. We had some experience doing that, as I mentioned earlier, and the teacher ended up taking this concept and adapting a tabletop game version of Ned Kelly and the Glen Rowan Showdown in order to teach kids who were a bit reluctant to learn about history in their class. And I personally think that this really highlights the sort of unexpected usefulness of games that we all know, but we may just need to think about sometimes. Last but not least is the actual hobby side of tabletop gaming, which we have found is a great way to connect with people who might not necessarily be interested in playing these things, or at least they don't think they're interested in playing, but they are craft-minded. We have a program called Paints of War, which is our tabletop terrain building workshops. We run these about twice a year, usually during the school holidays, and currently it's about $5 per person. We never struggle for bookings for these. They're normally fully booked, 10 to 15 young adults per session. And the participants create their own scenes. We've had a good number of people actually come to our gaming events as a result of first coming to these tabletop terrain building sessions. The materials themselves can be bought pretty cheaply from places like Bunnings. You use corkboard for the tiles, spare miniatures from putting together other kits, foam hills cut ahead of time. The paint for the miniatures can be expensive, but it does last a long time if you dispense a little into a paper plate for each participant. If you just give the kids the paint jars, they'll tend to upend the whole lot in one go. So dispense it individually. I'll leave you now with just a few images to show the results of these Paints of War. I think you'll agree they're pretty incredible what actually comes out to it, and it often surprises both the participants and their parents, and indeed us as well, what the sort of things that they might actually produce. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope it haven't bored you too much. I'll obviously be around if there's any questions, and feel free to drop me an email if you do have any questions. But thank you very much for listening.
Wayne, we've actually got a few questions coming through chat. That was fabulous. Thank you so much. And it was lovely seeing the pride those young people had with their lovely Paints of War productions. They really look amazing, yeah. And the people look really proud of them.
They were they were blown. It's like, it doesn't look like much up until the last half an hour, and then it's like, and it all gels together. It's like, oh my god, this looks really cool.
But I also like your practical advice around, don't give them all the paint. A few questions came through about Dungeons and Dragons, asking who are the dungeon masters. So yes. Yeah,
sure. So in this case, I am the dungeon master for both the online and the face-to-face sessions. In fact, I've got one this afternoon. It's like I said, the sort of buy-in from other staff is the thing that you are going to need the most. So if and like showing people that there's genuine value in this, will go a long way. So ideally, we would like to have more sessions going, and we would need some more Dungeon Masters. We have actually just, well, it hasn't got off the ground yet, but we've got someone who was interested in volunteering to run some games as well, a member of the public. But I didn't mention that because it hasn't actually started yet, but that's something that we're hoping to look into for 2023. But currently, me.
That becomes a bit tough if there's one person and kind of like you get sick, you have holidays, those kinds of things, or don't you get holidays because
holidays, man? Don't know what those. No. Yeah, you just got to plan around it. My team leader Daryl Kane is also. We've been playing games for most of our life. That's why, like, we have the good fortune of already having a lot of our own stuff that's painted. But yeah, so trying to engage with this volunteer, and if word of mouth gets around, perhaps we can attract some more. Yeah, and just encourage people to know that it's not that hard to run it, and it's fun.
It certainly sounds a lot of fun the way you're describing it, and yeah, the Kings of War sets look amazing. I also like that you've got portable sets that you can take out and about to the community. Yeah. Now, the payments, are they to cover the costs of materials, or it's a requirement of your council to charge for programs?
That's a payment. So prior to COVID, there was a all events are free policy. We now request a small payment. In terms of covering costs, I'm not going to lie, it's not even remotely close to covering the actual cost of the event. It's as much to show people that there is value in this. A lot of the time you find that if you're giving someone away for nothing, it might not be appreciated, but if you're asking for something in return, since we started charging, we haven't noticed any downturn in the attendance at events, as well as, kind of makes people feel like they are getting something of value. In terms of cost recovery, staff time alone would eclipse anything that we charge for an event.
Just thought I'd ask, and there's a question here of how much time and preparation goes into the Dungeons and Dragons and other sessions. So kind of like for the session this afternoon, how much preparation do you need to do?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of Dungeon Masters will say you can expect about an hour of preparation per hour of gameplay if you're efficient about it. I find that the kids, especially if there's normally, we've got 6 of them at each session, between 6 and 7, they will spend a lot of the time just role playing with one another. So you actually don't have to be very prepared. But I would say I normally have once a fortnight on a Friday is maybe a good half day will have me prepared for for both online and the face-to-face group. But it's a tough question because it's just going to vary as to how much you think you might need to. My advice to any potential Dungeon Master out there is don't prepare too far in advance. You don't really need to know what's going to happen except what's going to happen next.
Thank you. And yeah, someone in chat made the comment that it could be viewed as similar to preparing for story time.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah. Now, I think I've gone through all the questions here, but does anyone have additional questions they'd like to ask of Wayne? There were certainly comments around the costumes that you were wearing in some of the slides. People were most appreciative.
Oh, hey, it's a pleasure. It's I guess like we're probably all in a similar position where, you get members of the community coming up and saying, "Oh, you've got the greatest job in the world. You just chatting, singing stories to kids and things." It's like, that is part of it. I also spend a lot of time sitting in front of a computer doing risk assessments and budget planning. So any excuse you have to sort of have a bit of fun as well, I think makes it worthwhile.
More questions coming through once I asked, are any of the participants doing one-off dungeon mastering?
I think some of them do run their own games outside of outside of us. My original dream for it would be to maybe start a group for a few months and then have one of those players step up, and now they are running that group themselves, and I can have like a sort of bunch of little satellite groups going, and I could sort of step into a role of more just like overseeing them. That hasn't happened yet, but I live in hope. Yeah, so no individual group is running them by themselves yet. But that is the ultimate goal, have them become more self-sufficient, and I move more into like an advisory role for it.
Okay, well, on that advisory role note, there's a question of, do you provide training for setting up these kinds of programs, or would you be interested in providing training? And I'm guessing for library staff.
Yep, for sure. We have run seems like a lifetime ago, but we had actually at least for the Central Coast staff, but hypothetically others could be invited, games training day, where we were going to have staff just basically run through all of our different gaming programs, including D&D or other tabletop role-playing games, just as much as anything to show people that you can do it. I find that sometimes people if they've not been exposed to many games, maybe even board games as well, they might have already decided that they don't understand how it works and therefore don't want to do it. But once you have a go of it, really, if you've got a command of Zoom or Excel, you have the skills to play any of these games. So yeah, game training day is something, and should there be outside interest in that, then something we could talk about. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think there's
hopefully
interest. People would like your email address again after that. And I'd say it would be helpful if some of this discussion could also go on the game's email list, because I think that could be a helpful way to share. It's a question from, how do you set expectations to ensure play doesn't cause issues for participants? It has been answered in chat by another person, but it'd be interesting to know what you do at Central Coast.
Okay, in terms of I do apologize. Can you just repeat the statement again?
What do you do to set expectations or ensure play doesn't cause issues for participants, for example, avoiding sensitive subjects?
That's an excellent question. So two-part answer. I found that a lot of the people who are willing to come along, and especially we've got a couple of younger kids toward the sort of 11, 12 age, but mostly it is actual like 15, 16-year-olds. People who are willing to commit to ongoing Dungeons and Dragons seem to be the sort of people who are respectful of other people who are also interested in that hobby. So that's the sort of easy answer. Sometimes you don't have to. I set expectations at the start of the overall session. I have a little list of here are the things that I expect, how to be respectful to each other, don't talk over each other, and give me a look, or you can speak up if something makes you uncomfortable, and we will change it. I don't allow PvP. That's players fighting other players or stealing stuff from each other. I just don't allow it, period, at the table. And I try to sort of shut that stuff down pretty quick if it comes up. And in terms of sensitive materials, I do invite anyone to tell me privately ahead of time if there's anything that they don't want to look at. Aside from that, I mean, we do keep it relatively PG-13. It's still children and youth, stuff. So we avoid there's no sexual content. Keep the violence to a relative minimum, unless it's cartoonish violence where you like hack off an orc's head and it blast explodes up in the air. There's no violence against children. So at the end of the day, you just do your best to avoid those sort of themes and try to create an environment where people are comfortable telling you if there's something wrong, and communicate it ahead of time. Again, I don't know if that answers the question. We don't have cards or anything that they use, not those kind of safety tools, but we don't really address those kind of, they're very light-hearted adventures.
There's a question around, can you share the list of expectations?
Yeah, sure. Can I don't have it right.
You can
here,
email it to the games list.
Yep.
That would be, yeah. So if I'll put the how to subscribe to the games list in chat later on, so that if people aren't on that already, yeah.
I can add just a real brief thing. Sorry to push. I phrase it in a way that a lot of the people who are coming along, a lot of the kids who are coming along, they're familiar with stuff like Critical Role, these really, really strong, popular, well-known brands. You tend to put it to them more like, not, you aren't allowed, don't do these things. You say, you know what are the qualities that make the best players? It's not someone who knows all the rules. It's not someone who has the strongest character. The best players are players who are respectful of each other, who know when to speak and know when to shut up. You know, you sort of put it to them as though, hey, there's a standard that you can achieve if you want to be the best. And these are the qualities that make an excellent D&D player, not just, you know, having the best sword. Just a thought.
Really appreciate that, Wayne. It's been fabulous hearing from you this morning. I think there's one more question. Are the games for Harry Potter and Star Wars available to purchase? So,
so we can't sell them to people. These are all homemade games by us. The Jedi, for example, we got a bunch of fairly cheap Dark Age spearmen, chopped the top of the spears and just painted the sticks silver and green, and now it's a lightsaber. But they all use the same rules. So the same rules that, like a horde of orcs in Kings of War, you know, how many attacks does it have? What does it have to roll to hit? You just change them and change it down to, all right, so what does a Jedi have to roll to hit? How fast does this model move? So they all use the same rule set. Once you know how to do one thing, you're going to know how to do them all. You're just calling them something different. Yeah, so I'm certain that there are Harry Potter and or Star Wars games out there, but all of our stuff is fundamentally homemade. I'd be happy to share any of the rule sets if you want them. Do you want to send them through?
Yeah, maybe games
more than merrier.
Email list. I feel like I'm promoting that, but why not? We're in a games seminar. Look, Wayne, that's been fabulous. Please join me in thanking Wayne for sharing this information now. Much appreciated, and it certainly looks like there's a great games environment at Central Coast Libraries.
Thank you.
We'll now move, I suppose, a bit southwest from Central Coast, and we'll hear from Lorinda and Stephanie from Penrith.
Hi there, folks. We're just going to share our screen with you this morning. That one? Yep. Yeah. There we go. All right. Can you all see that? Hi, folks. My name's Lorinda. I am the Children's Programs Librarian here at Penrith City Library, and I'm joined also with my colleague today.
Hi, I'm Steph. I'm technically in the resources team, but sometimes the kids section lets me come in to do teen events.
Which we're very grateful for, because Steph has got some amazing skills in D&D today as well. So board, get your board game on. We want to share with you our programs around Dungeons and Dragons and chess and board games today. Well, a very limited board game kind of program at the moment. But first of all, chess. We have been running chess at the library here for many years. And I suppose the element with our programs essentially is that we often get facilitators to come in and run our programs, which frees up our librarians to host, I suppose, support with admin, and also allows us to focus on other things as well. And through doing that, I suppose we are able to ensure that we have got a certain quality of experience for kids and in their learning and education around chess, and particularly with D&D too. So we work with Sydney Academy of Chess, and we run basically a 1 hour session. It could be between 6 or 10 weeks in a term, a couple of terms a year. The structure of the session is great. They've got like a 30-minute play time, and then there is a focus time where we're learning about chess strategy and extending skills. And this is probably one of the only sessions where we also have quite a broad age range, because from 6 to 14-year-olds generally, because really chess is about your skill, basically, as opposed to your age. So we find that some really young kids are really switched on really early, and it's a really nice activity across ages. A lot of the tutors from Sydney Academy of Chess are often university students who are with that kind of group for a while. So we found it really great to kind of build relationships with 1 or 2 students, and as they come and work with our students over time, they kind of improve their skills too in terms of that interaction with young people. We were really able to pivot quite quickly to online chess because we'd been working with Sydney Academy of Chess for so long, and they were running programs through Chess Squad. So we've had one experience of, probably 2 sessions I think we ran during COVID, and it ran in a similar way. We used both the Zoom platform and the Chess Squad site. The kids have to set up a profile to work in Chess Squad, but then they get to play. There's features in Chess Squad where you can play with anyone who's on the platform, but there's also the option to restrict it to the group. So we would pretty much open up in Zoom, and we're really wanting to create that kind of connection between the group of students who registered for that event, and we would just play amongst ourselves. So really all of that online experience too is supported for parents with, certainly information about their online safety, and, how to be thoughtful around those things, particularly when setting up profiles. Some of the key learnings, I think we prefer face-to-face chess, absolutely. Certainly we found the 1 hour time frame in that online space kind of short by the time you get everyone on board in both their platforms, and sometimes the age range, the broad age range too, in that online kind of environment, dealing with kids' attention spans, I suppose, at different ages was a little bit different. So we would probably, if we did that again, extend it to maybe 1 hour and 15 to make room for a little bit more playtime and things like that. Moving through, we've been playing around with Dungeons and Dragons since 2018, which has been great. And really the core of this program has been our connection with a presenter, Ian Zammit, who we're very fortunate to have found. Ian, as a result of working with us, has been playing Dungeons and Dragons for a long time, but I suppose the other kind of key thing to his work has been that he works with young people in theatre and storytelling in lots of different ways as well. So we've found those 2 skill sets in that presenter to really have created a great safe environment for students in our program. We started out, well, I should say just through this too, Ian's also created role play experience, and he's really exploring different ways of extending into working with adults or using D&D as an avenue to build social kind of networks and even a little bit of professional development in teams and that kind of thing too. So yeah, definitely worth looking at his website. We started out trialling D&D as a holiday workshop, and our aim was really about introducing D&D to new players. So the ages were really between 12 and 16, so kids who are wanting to jump in. We tried to set it up as 2 3-hour sessions, 4 3-hour sessions, but 2 a week over a school holiday period. And that was okay, but we quickly moved to an after-school series, 5 to 6 sessions in a 2-hour weekly session on a Monday. And we've tried with a couple of other models too, running like an introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, being a dungeon master. We haven't quite cracked that format. The idea was to try and provide enough skills for this new kind of group, that's in the sense that they might then choose to go on together and become self-sufficient, similar to what Wayne's beautiful vision is there as well. We've also had a go at having an intro session and then having a continuing session with the same students or students who've been through the program before as a continuing game. Yeah, really we've landed on one sweet spot for us, and Steph will share a little bit more about that.
So what we're doing at the moment is essentially a one-shot storyline which runs for the 5 to 6 weeks over a term. And we're doing sort of 2 of those a year at the moment. And that we found that was a good length because you can have a good introduction and then that gives everyone enough time to get used to how the game works and start having actual fun instead of always worrying about the rules. So our GM, Ian, runs the actual game part. We have a library staff member in each session, and generally the same person, but we've had a few where we've had to swap out due to some COVID and various things. So the library staff member deals with all the logistics. We take bookings through Eventbrite, and they contact all the parents with the information, and they also support the GM. And we found it's very good if the library staff member plays in the game as a character, because that works very well as sort of, rather than you just sit in the corner and stare at them in a supervisory sort of way, you interact with them much better if you're actually playing. And we also try to promote other resources in the area. There's a board game shop in Penrith which runs games evenings during the week and also on weekends. So we can sort of funnel students through to there if they want to play more. There is a convention locally, and we do have, we'll talk about this later, but we have kit in the library available as well.
So our key learnings really has been that with library staff playing, it means that we're able to support Ian's role, I suppose, in creating like good player behaviour, or as in, an example or a model about how they might even think creatively. I've certainly played and mixed things up a little bit, going, go on, we can really stretch this a little bit. It encourages teamwork and social interaction, and it's also another adult person in the room. It allows Ian to continue moving through the game, but it is providing some support for students too who, sometimes are drawn to this because they're wanting to build greater social connections or kind of practice speaking up, or might have some anxiety and things like that. So that's worked quite well together. A session 0 has been really important in our setup as well. So with new players, just really simple game mechanics. Ian has really created a beautiful little pack about jumping in quickly, because the player's handbook can be quite weighty.
It's a lot as an entry barrier for kids who aren't sure what's going on and they just want to get right into the game. And then you can always bring in more rules later to explain things as you go. But he sort of has a summary of what your character's strengths are and what they're good at and how you add those to your roles and things as you go. He pre-prepares all of the characters as well. So he just hands out sheets on the day, rather than character creation can take a very long time. No one has time for that in a very short one-shot session.
We were able to move online as well during COVID with these sessions as well. These ran a little bit differently. We were working with Roll20 and the Discord platforms together. And again, we set this up in a way that kids registered via Eventbrite. We certainly sent out a lot of e-safety information to parents, and parents were invited to come to a session 0 if they're wanting to learn more about what are we doing online here. I suppose the session 0 was really important for the online
because you had to
experience.
Get everyone. A lot of the kids did already use Discord for chatting with friends, But if they weren't familiar with Roll20, Roll20 is a site which is specifically designed to run role-playing games online. So you have maps, you have character sheets, you roll dice in-game. You can also play music, and you can do voice and video chat through there, but it's quite a dense program, and it can crash a little bit and the video is not great. So that's why we were running the voice chat through Discord, which did also enable us to have a dedicated tech support channel, so that rather than interrupting the game, whoever was the library staff member who was hosting could then talk to students through text chat or pull them aside into a voice chat if they were having real issues getting connected. Sometimes it was just turn it all off and on again, the classic, but yeah, it was good to have that as an option. We found that very helpful.
And I definitely know, again, the role of library staff in this was pretty crucial to provide the opportunity for Ian to keep focusing on the game, and for us behind the scenes to be troubleshooting. So just as Steph said there, these were some of the key learnings. We'll share this. Yeah, we have actually probably talked about most of that. And just different players having different comfort levels with tech and communications too, was just another thing to be mindful of as we moved into that online space. A lot of them actually wouldn't never put their video on, I think.
Yeah, we did want everybody to put their cameras on at least to start with, just for safety reasons. But if people wanted to then turn it off and just talk, and I think we had one person who was really not comfortable talking and would prefer to talk to type, and then we would read it out for them. So yeah, so just adjusting as you go.
That one's self-explanatory. And Wayne also made some really great connections from his session. So thanks for that too. Board games, look, we were pretty excited about how our chess and how our D&D were going, and we're looking to extend our programs. This is just before COVID, and we've kind of came up with a bit of a model that we really wanted to have a try with, but we were shut down pretty quickly. So this was right on the cusp of COVID, and in some ways we are still yet to trial this format. So look, in terms of starting out or trying to work out whether we could get a regular board game kind of session happening, we just asked staff to bring in their games, really. And of course there are some staff on our team who are really into gaming, and so had some a whole range of kind of different things. Others had just really classic old school kind of stuff. So we created a one-off kind of event that would run for 2 or 3 hours, which could essentially be a walk-in event, or you could come with a group. And we had a whole heap of games on display. We had one facilitator who could support people in running a kind of a select session. Would introduce some small icebreaker games, and then there was the opt-in option for new people or individuals to try out something with staff support. Alternately, you could come in and have the experience as a self-directed experience, select a game and kind of go. So we had 2 library staff on for that. So no presenters, this was all us. And a range of classic and modern games. So we're kind of wanting to trial this model with kids, teens, and with kind of seniors or with a family group. So there's a really wonderful opportunity perhaps to get some intergenerational experience going on, and having seniors who remember their classic games wanting to share with the young people, and vice versa. So unfortunately we had all of this set up, and COVID came along and we all went home. So and then since then, with obviously just trying to think through about how we manage hygiene and other things, we're hoping to trial this again in 2023. So we've also had some changes too in our service, which means we've got a new adult programs librarian. So there are more variety of programs now available, and we're reaching out to an audience base there. So we've got some new spaces in one of our library too, to kind of provide an environment where we can trial this out. Lastly, we've just got a couple of library game kits in our libraries too, and I'm sure a number of you do. Chess kits, again, this is available to anyone who comes. It's for in-house use. people just pretty much need to hand over either their library card, or if they are not a member and they don't wish to become one, some ID for surety, and then they've got the use of the kit while they're playing in the library. We also set up as a support to our D&D program a game kit with the view that hopefully maybe kids who were super inspired might want to start playing with their own groups. We've found that our D&D resources pretty much walk off the shelves and never return when we have them in our general collection. So we collected, some simple master screens, master manual, and some player handbooks and die sets, everything that you might need to kind of
run a game, basically.
Run a game,
just
a simple game. So that you could come and use that kit here in the library. So the idea was that we're hoping to maybe get some, with those new kids starting out, support them with the idea of finding a DM in there and that they could continue their own games. There has been that interruption during COVID too. So it's kind of a little bit back to the drawing board for us, but we have this good to go. And I think really all we need to do now is remind people that we have them in the library. So there'll be a bit of a promo splash, and obviously being able to promote, having a program and then being able to promote that these kits are available through our chess or D&D just means it's more likely people are going to access these. So chess kits have always been very popular in our library anyway. So, and I think that's us. Is there any questions, or there'll probably be a bigger discussion anyway if we go along.
And is it your dungeon, confirming that your Dungeons and Dragons workshops target children? What kind of age in particular?
So we offer a D&D to 12 to 16-year-olds. So it's really that early high school, secondary age. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And look, I thought it was fabulous hearing about the strategies for training with chess, the various D&D workshops. In the panel session, I will be asking more about Discord, and the kits sound great. There's a question for your long-term D&D games. How do you manage when kids might not be there every week? Or it's not a problem because you're really holding the shorter one-shots?
We haven't had too many issues with that. We have had a couple of times where people have missed one session, but essentially the GM would just take that character out for that session, because they've generally booked out pretty well. So we've had 6 or 7 kids each time. So if you're missing one person, it's not too bad. As long as they come for the first session, that one is really important.
Yeah, they set up, and really, I don't know, they trip over a rock and fall unconscious for the game, and then they come back later.
Yeah, and then we just fill them in at the next session.
And so someone's asked to the facilitators volunteers, but I'm figuring you're actually paying the yeah.
So let me just explain a little bit more. Yeah, so we have paid presenters. All of the presenters need to have a working with children's check and some public liability insurance. So we do charge for the sessions, and I suppose it equates to around about $7 to $10 per session, depends what it is, and that's paid as upfront as a term fee for a certain number of sessions ahead of time. Yeah.
Are they in kind of like a general library space or in their meeting room? There's a question around how does it go with noise?
Yeah, we are set up in a separate space, so we're fortunate to have a game space. We have had to pull it and chess out into a lower lounge area, a study kind of space where we share things, but we've got some rolling boards. Yeah, we do like to have a separate space, so there is room to really get excited if we can.
Sounds fun. And the kits are for use in library only, not for taking home. Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a whole lot of fun game stuff happening out at Penrith. Thank you so much, Lorinda and Stephanie, for sharing that with us. Please join me in thanking Lorinda and Stephanie. We'll actually go for it will be a 14-minute break now. And we'll see everyone back at 11:10. But yeah, please join me in thanking Lorinda and Stephanie first.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back, and we'll now get to hear from Lauren and Carla from Kiama about escape rooms. Over to Lauren and Carla.
Hello, everyone. We're just getting out. Beautiful. Hang on. All right. Can everyone see that that presentation? I think we should be. Yeah, just check the chat.
Yep, we could see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so I'm Carla, the Outreach Officer at Kiama Library, and
I'm Lauren, the Branch Supervisor for Gerringong Library.
So we've been programming what I call large-scale escape rooms for around 3 years now, and we really enjoy creating and running these escape rooms. We'll talk a little bit today about how we structure our game, how we create ambience,
Gotta say it right.
and some prop making tips and tricks, and what we do to follow up after our games as well. This is pretty much the whole reason behind all of our everything.
Our manifesto.
Our manifesto. Life must be lived as play. Like, let's have fun. Let's have fun at work. Let's make fun spaces for people. Life should be about play.
Absolutely.
So essentially, we wanted to create spaces of mindful play for all ages. And we wanted to create an association of fun and wonder with our service and with libraries in general. And we found it was quite good outreach as well, as we have a lot of people come through that may not have much experience with library spaces. Escape rooms are very mindful. They offer opportunities for teamwork, for bonding, for memory making, and we just wanted to play ourselves. It's really fun. We find it really fun setting the games up. We find it really fun watching people play, watching people go through the rooms. And we find like we can use a lot of the skill sets that we have professionally and in our personal lives as well.
It's true. And the more we play, the more people enjoy it too,
true.
which is really great. So I'm just going to chat a little bit about the writing process and sort of how we start off. So there are a few ways you can develop an escape room. There's many ready-made digital and tabletop games for free, or ones that you can purchase. And we've seen some great example of tabletop games today. They're amazing. Lots of printables, Pinterest boards, lots of places you can go for inspiration. So we were really lucky to trial a Harry Potter escape room created by Gabby from Shell Harbour Libraries for our very, very first one. And I don't think you were.
I wasn't here for that.
Yeah. Which really gave us, we're very grateful to her, it really gave us the confidence and the knowledge to start designing our own then. And so we designed a range of different puzzles and clues, adapting sort of existing ones that we find online to be able to work in our space, and then coming up with others from scratch as well, just through discussion. And someone saying something like, wouldn't it be awesome if they actually had to dodge full-size Dementors?
Actual Dementors. Can we get actual Dementors?
Or how cool would a full-size dragon head be, you know? And I always know when Carla starts a sentence with the words, in my mind, that we're going to end up with a really monumental prop, of which she is a very good builder, or I have to be the one to say, no, I don't think that's achievable. We have to, you know, crunch that idea down. So we want our players to be really physically immersed in our space, to have to complete the tasks and puzzles with, you know, great fun props that they can engage with, or, you know, the best we can do with budget and time constraints. And so we write our escape rooms. We start with an idea that we are both excited about, and then we build our puzzles, and then we get to work on the actual shaping of how that all works together.
So once we have an idea of what we want to do, like our theme and an idea of what puzzles we want to make and what the space might look like, we put everything into a run sheet. So purchases, orders, prop making, who is responsible for what, costing, the room outlay, everything about the gameplay goes into a run sheet. It's like our
very detailed
escape room Bible. We could not do anything without this run sheet.
Yeah.
So once we've got the run sheet set up,
There is an example.
yeah, there's an example of our run sheet. So this is an example of our upcoming Marvel escape room, which will happen in January. And this is just the run sheet for the first. We have four spaces in our room. So this is just an example of the first space. So you can see
Well, that's just the starting bit.
yeah, the little start bit at the top there. And then
we've got this section of the room broken down by tasks, and then the details of that, and then decorations and signage and everything related to that. So, yeah.
And we find that helps us work through just setting it all up and running the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
We also have a reset sheet. So we will create a reset sheet. So in between our sessions, we probably have 4 or 5 sessions a day. So in between our sessions, we can run through, make sure that everything is reset back to gameplay mode.
Yeah, after you do it a few times, you get used to it.
You've
You do
got
it
it.
quite quickly, but yeah.
Unless something comes up, like a lock doesn't work suddenly, or
Yeah.
something's leaking, or you know.
Okay. So then moving on to the puzzles and tasks that we design. We've got a few here, I think. Yes. Okay, so these are some of the ones that we set up for our Harry Potter escape room, which was the more recent one that we did. It was January of this year.
Yeah, we've done Lord of the Rings, and this was Harry Potter.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. So you can see that there's a mix of word puzzles, actual puzzles, tasks, riddles, codes. Sort of there's letters on the bottom of these. There's a riddle that they have to solve with this. This is a physical challenge where they have to get something out of the water with a magnet wand. And this is the amazing dragon head that Carla built from scratch out of cardboard and expanding foam. Yes?
So with that one, they had to weigh particular dragon eggs using an actual scale, and then solve a riddle to get the correct weight that they needed to put into the lockbox.
Opened a lockbox.
Yeah.
Yes. Just moving on, I think that's probably the next thing. Yes, so as Carla said before, we usually set up our rooms with 4 sections, and players then have to complete everything in the section before moving on to the next. We usually do 3 tasks or puzzles within each section, which then give them code words and phrases to get through to the next space. So we try to frame it like that to pace it really well, basically. We theme the individual rooms and write the challenges based on something from the source material. So it's very much like inspired by the theme we choose, but very much different to the story of Harry Potter or Marvel or whatever. Yeah.
We're not using any source material.
No, it's just the theme.
Just setting it in that world.
Yeah. So the Harry Potter one, we did a Great Hall space, a classroom space, the Forbidden Forest, and the Triwizard Tournament. Lord of the Rings, we have the Shire, Lothlorien, Moria, and Mordor. And we try to let everyone enter those sections with a little bit of information. So inside the Forbidden Forest section, we had the Dementors, the aforementioned Dementors, which Carla made, and the players had to go through that and then immediately dodge them. So if they touched a Dementor, they had to start again, that sort of stuff. We did a similar thing in the Lord of the Rings game as well. It was a blindfolded sort of orc maze. And so they're examples of like the more physical puzzles that we design. Which we find works because everybody has different skills. Yeah, for sure.
Someone in their team might be really good at word puzzles. Someone else might be really good at, figuring out weights and mathematical type things, and somebody else might be really good at that kind of physical things. Yeah,
for sure.
So we try to make our puzzles appeal to different ways of being a human.
Of playing a game.
Playing a game. So help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who deserve it is essentially just like how we do our clues. So we give everybody at the beginning, when we do our little spiel, we give all of our teammates, our teams, clues. So we go through the games with them. So at any point they can use one of their 4 clues or one of their 4 clue tokens, and we will help them out. So these are some of the clue tokens that we've used. These were 3D printed. Put a drink on them. What are they called? Coasters. These are 3D printed coasters that we used, which were great. And we used 4 little dragons in a dragon bag for the Harry Potter one. Yeah, which was great.
And then
It adds, and we gave them a time turner as well, so that they could get an extra 3 minutes at the end of the game, and it adds just a fun little element to the gameplay. Our gameplay is quite like LARPing. We're trying, I think, to get as close to LARPing as possible.
it's in a very contained way.
Exactly. Yeah. So we try to give our teams an overall task or an overall quest. So they not only have to do the 3 puzzles in each game, but they're also collecting things as they go on to that will help them in the overall task or the overall quest. So it makes the game a little bit more narrative driven. It encourages teamwork and it gives them a reason to complete the task, however fictive, whatever, whatever they just enjoy having that last little bit to do right at the end. So the quest is usually something as simple as collect some items you will need for the last task. In the Harry Potter one, for instance, they collected Hallows and Horcruxes as they went through, and then at the end there was a final task. So the final task in the Lord of the Rings one obviously was they had to put the ring in the volcano, and the Hallows, the Horcruxes had to be thrown through the fire, the fiend fire there. Yeah. So the marble game coming up, they will be collecting Infinity Stones to put into the gauntlet at the end, and these items will just be hidden through the game in lock boxes. Yeah, so they get something to collect all these things in as they go. So the benefit of the quest, obviously, is because it also builds tension. Right at the very end, there is a big sense of it. There's sort of a more of a sense of achievement at the end. It's pretty dramatic. The narrative helps them as they go through. And when explaining the quest at the start, this also gives us an opportunity to assign individual traits or skills. So each of the team members have a particular individual skill or power, or they're a part of a particular house. It all contributes to the wider narrative of the game and the role play aspect, which people really get into. So the other benefit, obviously, is that there is a bigger payoff at the end. Yeah.
It's fun. My favorite photo. So the absolute important thing that we found is adding things like light and magic and sound and all of that into it. It just makes the whole experience really fun and worthwhile for everyone. As Carla said at the beginning, ambiance must be pronounced correctly. We really love watching people engage with all of the different parts of the game. And it makes it really sensory as well. Carla's always trying to add more lights. The more lights, the merrier.
Turn the lights off, make it dark, and then add lights in.
Yes. Fairy lights, strip lights, puck lights, signal lights, lamps, string lights, light curtains, just all of it. They're relatively cheap to buy, and they instantly create atmosphere that you can't just get with overhead lighting. And then we tell people, of course, at the beginning that there'll be lighting changes, and that if anyone has a problem with it, they can just advise us in that moment. We add music. I mean, with the themes that we choose, there's lots of free music on YouTube that you can pop up through a Bluetooth speaker, and it just adds like a lovely ambient,
ambient, like music and ambient soundtracks. There's heaps of free ambient soundtracks. So even if you don't want to use music for whatever reason, and why wouldn't you? But you can just have ambient sounds going on, the sound of people eating or talking or playing in the background or whatever. It does add a lovely atmosphere.
That's exactly right. And then we usually add some jump scares as well. So a large spider sort of hanging just inside a doorway that they go through, or the dementors that we mentioned before. So obviously be mindful of people's anxieties and make them aware that these things, may happen throughout. And we're fairly gentle with how we present it to people anyway in those moments. And I don't think we've had any issues, have we?
No one's ever wanted to leave.
People having problems with it.
They do sort of nervously ask at the beginning, are we going to be locked in there?
Yeah. No, the doors aren't really locked.
We promise you can leave
at any time. Yes, and movement as well. Lights that flash, things that move, things that sway, creating the movement in the space is very exciting. And you can't see it in the pictures, but the light at the top of the huge tower with the eye in it in Lord of the Rings was actually rotating and flashing, so it made it look amazing.
It was the Eye of Sauron.
Like
Absolutely, like actually, it was great. All right, so decoration and props. We love this.
Oh, this is the tower.
Yeah, so there's the tower. You can see the Barad-dûr or the Eye of Sauron. Yeah, for sure. So props the props. You can see in our walkthrough, which I think I put at the end, but I might have to have a look at that, how prop heavy our rooms are. Our rooms are very, very prop heavy. So a lot of the large props we made can be reused for other events, like that fireplace there. We've used that for quite a few.
500 times.
Yeah, so many times. And a lot of the small props, honestly, a lot of these glass jars and things like cauldrons and things like that are just decor from our houses. It's just how we decorate our homes. So we often borrow a lot of things too. We put a call out to all our library, the library and the council teams to ask for lockboxes and props and other chests and things. And we often do get quite a bit. You can also talk to your local dance and theatre groups. They often have backdrops and costumes they might be willing to lend you, backdrop stands, things like that. I also put a call out to free community pages like Finders Keepers and freebies pages and things like that on Facebook and social media. I'll often get quite a few things from there, and you'd be surprised at what people will donate. Somebody wanted to give us a full-size throne,
That's right.
which Lauren said I couldn't have.
Because it would have been really difficult to
You
go
can't
and get
store it either, but we wanted it.
We
so
wanted
badly.
it. It would have been great.
So yeah, you'll be surprised at what people will donate. And can we make it? A bit of cardboard and some expanding foam goes a long way, as we've seen. And can we store it as well? Like, do we have the storage space for large scale props? A lot of them are just in my garage at home, so we might not be able to store them at work. eBay is your friend. So a lot of the stuff that we've got from that we use in our games, the smaller things and the cryptexes and packets of cheap locks and things like that we get from eBay. Backdrops and backdrop stands are relatively cheap. They're easy to store and they can be used for other programming as well. So
we've used them for heaps of things.
Yeah. I think we have spent maybe $100, $150 on backdrops just for this upcoming one, and we got 5 or 6 fairly big,
really
nice. 8-10 foot backdrops.
And we've got quite general ones this time that we could use for other things.
Absolutely. The other benefit of this is that each room acts as a giant photo booth. So at the end of everyone's session, we give them a few minutes to go back through while we're resetting and take all the photos, because they're not really cognizant of it as they're going through because they're focused on gameplay. But when they finish and the relief happens, they get an opportunity to go back through and really engage with the spaces. And it encourages people to dress up and use the props and absorb the space. And we get a lot of feedback in this time as well about the space and the gameplay. So I really recommend factoring time into the sessions at the end to let people explore and interact with the space outside the game, because we get a lot of happy faces and exclamations, and it's a really great thing for us to have that feedback.
It is for sure. Oh, here we go. There's some more.
Oh, there's some more, yeah.
You know, you really do only have another more minute.
No worries.
Sure. We're nearly done. Yeah.
So let's move on. Okay, so this is just a quick kind of guide of our timeline of what we do. We usually start working out, running and costing and all of that about 6 months before, and then about 3 months before. So we're in that stage now of building large props, grabbing everything we need, working on promotional material, and then just beforehand, we're sort of staffing, costuming, all of those sorts of things. And we're really happy with the attendance. Okay, I'll just walk through that a little bit quickly.
Just another one.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. And that's sort of as you get closer to the date, it's like it's a fair time crunch. Yeah. But with a few staff, it's fun to do.
Yeah, and we're really happy with our attendance. We pitch our rooms at sort of 13, 14 up, and we have all ages coming through. One of the Lord of the Rings one, we had an 80-year-old woman sliding along the floor to avoid the poison vines. So we really do get all ages. Now I did have a walkthrough put up there, but Yeah, it's not working on there. So I'll pop the walkthrough in the chat. And yeah, so thank you for letting us talk to you about one of our biggest passions. Please send through any questions you have. We would also like to offer the use of any of the escape rooms that we have already set up. All the gameplay, the puzzles, all of those things, the resets, and we're happy to share those with anybody if you would like to have them.
Absolutely.
That sounds great. There's been a few questions through chat, but I will ask you if you could answer them in chat. And
Sure.
but thanks so much. It sounds exciting, and it sounds like the library staff as well as the public really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that's fabulous. So thank you for letting us know about the escape rooms at Kiama. We'll now be heading to find out about escape rooms at Orange. So over to Sean and Rebecca.
Thank you, Ellen, and everybody. So I am Sean Brady. This is Rebecca Salmon. We're from Central West Libraries, Orange branch. We're speaking from Wiradjuri country.
All right, we're just going to get our little presentation up. Thank you to Kiama Library for telling us about Genially. As you can see, we have availed ourselves of them. All right, escape rooms at Central West Libraries.
It's disappeared on that side there.
Oh,
Just have to move this out of the way.
Sorry. There we go. Greetings, Muggles. Thank you for agreeing to help us. You have 1 hour to save the magical world from the forces of darkness. There is a powerful protective spell and magical artifact hidden in this abandoned school. The Australian Ministry of Magic needs both the spell and the artifact to create a shield of safety across the wizarding world. There are 3 things you need to know. 1, puzzles need to be solved. 2, this object is important. And lastly, you begin where all good quests begin, in the library.
So this was the prologue to our latest escape room, the Australian Ministry of Magic, obviously a Harry Potter theme, and that was the focus of this year.
So we've run 3 escape rooms at Central West Libraries before, and I guess a bit differently to other libraries, we have often let the space that we decide to run them in sort of really inform how we bring them together. So this was our first ever escape room, The Lost Thing, which we ran in a meeting room adjacent to the library based on Sean Tan's The Lost Thing. It was a real deep dive into cardboard construction. As you can see, we went crazy. We created the Department of Odds and Ends, the janitor, so many characters. The second escape room we had was called Mystery at Emmaville. We staged this in a historic cottage rumoured to be the birthplace of Banjo Patterson, which is in Orange. It really helped to set the theme, and children were tasked with finding a long lost manuscript within the house and then escaping out the back door with bushrangers hot on their heels. We had lots of really easy things, puzzles and things. As you can see here, this one was just snipping through, and one of the items that you had to unlock was just a pair of scissors so that you could snip through to the next room.
But the reset on that room was, you know, pretty high.
Yes,
With
it
having
was.
to re-web the entire door.
That's right. And this was the one that we ran just in this past July, the Australian Ministry of Magic, our latest escape room, which we launched to coincide with the 25-year anniversary of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So we decided to do this as our theme for the last one, partly because Harry Potter has such a broad audience that we knew we'd be able to engage with a large part of the community. The original fans are grown up now, and many of them are parents themselves. So we had some really nice times with parents bringing their kids and talking about a book that they really loved to read when they were young. The fantasy magic theme meant that we could have a lot of fun and be creative with prop design and could include magical properties. And when we found out that we could use this historic mansion, Crow Patrick, we knew that we'd get a lot of interest and that we'd get so much bang for our buck in terms of the aesthetic.
So to talk about location, with regard to where to deliver an escape room, we have tended to choose sites beyond the library, mainly because of the impact that an escape room would have on our space. An escape room needs space, quite a bit of space, and we don't actually have much available in the library proper itself. So we've partnered with our neighbour, the Art Gallery, to use their large meeting space, with Council's Heritage Unit to use its historic buildings, Emmaville Cottage being an example, with Headspace at their facility. So we reconstructed the entire Lost Thing escape room in their facility. And most recently for the Harry Potter room, fortunate to partner with Octec, a local educating college, and use their historic property, Crow Patrick. The problems that we have with using spaces outside the library are twofold, really. Mainly that they require significant modification. Spaces were not intended to be escape rooms and have to be altered to be so. Rooms may be too big, not lockable, have no heating, have safety issues, have no furniture, have too much furniture. At Crow Patrick, there were safety issues, particularly with second floor veranda and a central staircase, all of which had low railings, easily able to be climbed over by children. So we were particularly nervous about those areas. Obviously, we can't change the physical nature of these spaces, the walls or the doors. So we have to build the spaces with cardboard or other mechanisms, remove unwanted furniture, introduce necessary furniture. So to work with the space you're presented with requires as much creative deliberation as developing the puzzles themselves. The remote spaces take a lot of time to consider and prepare, but the benefits are that you build rewarding, symbiotic community relationships through collaboration.
So with the development of the puzzles and the story, like I said, we knew that we had Crow Patrick, and that really allowed us to work within that space. We've had other escape rooms where we've just had one large room that we've had to partition off. But in this case, we had the whole top story of Crow Patrick, which was a hallway with lots of doors along it. And we instantly got the sense that it could be a school, a magical school like Hogwarts, and that they would become the classrooms. So we had the potions room, the library, defense against the dark arts classroom, the room of requirement, and a staff room. We used the staff room. We did dress up and were participants in our escape room, but we sort of tried to keep a little bit to the staff room, at least for a good chunk of everybody's experience, because we found that sometimes the teams really enjoyed, they were a little bit more free talking to each other if we weren't sort of in the room watching them do everything. So we considered different audiences. So we have traditionally run them for kids, but we find that we get a lot of adults who are really interested. So we capitalized on that whole original Harry Potter fans being grown-ups now, and we ran some evening sessions, which we did with minimal lighting. We had wine and cheese. This made it spookier, more grown up, and allowed the adults to geek out about their favorite book without feeling like they were attending a kids activity. We also built the vibe at the library. So one of the, I guess, the downsides of running things off-site is that people will come into the library and say, well, what are you doing for the school holidays? And we have to say, oh, yes, it's all happening over there. So we had lots of other things happening in the library to sort of tie in with it, which created a buzz and also brought people back into our space. The style for this escape room, when we first walked into Crow Patrick, we saw this beautiful stained glass window that we were just captivated by. It was huge. The image was complex and beautiful, and we decided to use it as the basis for our puzzles and the items that we created. So you can see in here, there are just so many little images in here. There was a lyre bird down here. There was an owl. 2 stars and a crescent moon was one of the answers to the puzzles. We focused on the Australian aspects where possible, just sort of for fun. So the lyre bird became our phoenix, for example. the puzzle considerations, we tried to have sort of to think about multi-sensory or different thinking styles. So some people are great decoders, some people notice tiny details, and it's always good to have one person in the team who just pushes every button and pulls every lever. We did a little bit of research into age and whether we could use the same puzzles for kids and adults, and we found that yes, kids and adults usually complete the escape room in roughly the same amount of time, but they use totally different processes. Kids are more likely to push a button or try something that might be right in front of them. Adults often overthink it and overcomplicate it and end up taking twice as long. So that was sort of funny and interesting for us. When making the puzzles, we had to make sure they were very robust, and even when we thought we'd made them robust enough, they still sometimes got broken or fell apart. We also had to have plentiful supplies. So we did one color change puzzle where you poured an acid into this pea flour mixture, and we just had to have
a safe acid. It was lemon juice.
Yes, but we had to have, I don't know, 60 test tubes sort of in rotation. So you have to make sure you have enough resources to run it for every group and for them each to have the same experience. With designing puzzles, we often found it was easier to work backwards. So you would know what, word, phrase or number you needed to unlock the puzzle, and then you would sort of work back from there and figure out how you were going to make that happen. The variety was really important for us. So the first time we ran an escape room, we used a lot of bike locks and a lot of codes and things. And so we've tried to build on that each time and create more and more variation in our puzzles. And of course, you have to have red herrings. There are lots of times when people really zero in on something and it's not a clue. It's just something that already existed in the room or whatever. So these are just some examples of some of the puzzles that we had in the last one. This is some kids translating runes. They had a little blue light in the end of this wand. This is another blue light wand that they're using to find hidden clues on a map of the space. This was the color changing potion. So when you poured this vial of lemon juice in, it would turn pink, and P-I-N-K translated the lock to open a cupboard. And we also created actual books full of information that had clues that you had to bring out and use in other parts of the room.
Keep talking. Quickly.
For testing, we had our colleagues. So we work quite closely to the IT unit in the library. So that was really fun, having some people who are really good critical thinkers come in and work as a team.
They actually insisted that they get to have a go at it.
They did, but that was really good. So we tested it on groups of colleagues, on our own families, our own children, anyone we could find, just to try and find any little holes. We learned that out of adult groups, kid groups and family groups, probably the best ones are family groups. They come in and they already work as a team. Mum will say, you look over there and you look over here, and it'll all come together really nicely. We learned that we have to have clues at the ready because you just don't know how people are going to work to solve the puzzles. And like I said before, make or buy at least 2 of every lock or clue in case one gets lost or broken.
Okay, so moving on to event planning. Having expended all the effort and time and resources in creating the puzzles, designing the spaces, you really need to capitalize on it all by ensuring you maximize your audience. We designed our events for groups of 3 to 6 people and to run for no longer than an hour. There's no hard and fast rule about escape rooms, but there is a sweet spot of around about 4 people in an escape room. You can have other designs and you can have large groups, but we've mostly designed ours for about 4 people. So an hour per group with time for wrap up, to run for no longer than an hour. So an hour per group with time for wrap up for the group leaving, room reset, preparation for the next group, time for lunch for all of the staff. You're able to get, or we were able to get, about 4 or maximum of 5 sessions from a room in a day. We needed to have 2 staff to run at the event, being off-site, mindful about safety and avoid people working alone. We changed these 2 people over at lunch. So all up, we had 4 staff allocated to the event during the day, a significant resource cost in staff for a 16 to 20 people event during a day. You know, you're dedicating quite a lot of resources to it, not just all of the time and resources in building the thing, but then the intense resource cost on the day. We ran bookings through Eventbrite, spent quite a bit of time crafting the event page to ensure there was clarity about age limitations. We've experienced this before where people send their 4-year-old. Times, locations, people going to the wrong places. We've experienced that before. And we tend to deliver these events freely, and our experience is that that can result in people just not turning up. I know Wayne spoke about people paying for D&D, and that sort of obviates that problem. We still try to deliver things freely, but the downside to that is people will just not turn up because there's no value in it for them. I don't pay anything for it. I just won't turn up, and they don't even bother to cancel. So we also impress on participants their commitment to turn up, having booked the space.
And finally, running the escape room. So when you finally open your escape room to the first group, your heart is in your mouth. You don't know whether people will be able to join the dots, whether it will seem as magical to them as it did to you. Happily, we've only ever had to make minor tweaks once we're actually running it. So we ran it and it went well. It was well received and people had fun. Things got broken. Kids did unpredictable things. Some people will always try to subvert the path. Some teams don't work very well together. Some people come into the escape room and just say, I don't know what to do. and you end up sort of having to sort of start them off or give some clues very early on. But ultimately, when you watch a team solve the final clue and win the game, it's a fantastic moment that we never, ever get tired of. And that's why we'll keep running them. And that's the real magic for escape rooms for us. And that's the end.
We probably don't have time for questions, Ellen, do we? We'll answer them in the chat.
Just through chat.
Okay.
So please ask Sean and Beck any questions you'd like through chat. It was fabulous hearing about the way you use different locations. And while they've got challenges, it does sound like they do provide a very specific kind of atmosphere for each escape room as well. Yeah. So it sounds a lot of fun. Please join me in thanking Sean and Beck. And please ask your questions for Sean and Beck through chat as well, and they'll be able to answer them there. We'll now move back to Western Sydney and hear from Kat Thomas and Kate Phillips from Campbelltown. Over to you, Kat and Kate. Thanks.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Thanks for having us. We've sort of, oh yeah,
Share first.
share screen first, sorry. So we had a lot that we sort of wanted to try and cover today, and we've got a bit of a short amount of time.
I think it's already sharing. Hit share here and all.
So we thought we'd focus on the things that have come out of it and some beautiful pictures and that sort of thing. To show what we've been doing. One of the things that we've really found out Campbelltown Way is that people really need the social connectedness out here. It's very beneficial to mental health. And like even pre-COVID, this goes back to, so some of the things I'll talk to a bit of a pre-COVID life and then how we're starting to then build up now coming back in person. But we've really found that creating social groups for any age pretty much has a really positive effect on our community. And so that's really the core of what we are looking at, basically from birth with our children's and baby read and rhyme programs all the way up until like our seniors programming. So I'll just move on. Someone yell out if there's any problems with the presentation or if you can't hear us. So social gaming groups are huge here at the library. We have, these are weekly. So we have like social Scrabble and more, which is for any age basically. And the more is generally like teas, biscuits, or things that people bring along, other word games usually. This is great for anyone in the community. We find that we actually get quite a few called people coming along, as it really helps their English skills as well. And that's something that we expected to be quite small, but it grew to the point that we've started modelling it at other libraries as well. So in that spirit, we also have board games and biscuits that runs at one of our other branches on a different day and different time, so that we actually have crossover of people that go to those. We also have a social chess club. We have 2 of those. We have one that is after school chess, which is a more school age, and has a volunteer facilitator to help people learn as well as just game together. And we also have a social group that's more all ages for newbies, but also anyone that's experienced with chess. We also have Block Squad, which is one of our newer programs, and that is to do with Lego, and that is actually for children and adults. And we've actually found that that's turned into a bit of a kids and dads club, unexpectedly, which is amazing. It's a great way of spending time together, and that's a great way of problem solving skills and building skills and spatial awareness. So we're very excited about how that one's taken off. That is pretty much a self-guided program as well. So they make of all of these, pretty much they make what they want out of it. I also wanted to mention our anime and manga club. So technically this club started as a social club where people come together to discuss their love of anime and manga. But it's become really a lot more than that. Zoe, who runs this club, uses elements of gaming, both active and passive, to really assist people with social anxiety, involve themselves in discussion. So there might be games on the table, or they might play a game whilst they're talking about anime, so that people have distractions, so that it's not all about the pressure of having a conversation. And we've found that extremely successful, and they've actually extended that into having trivia nights and board game play that are anime board game themes. So we were talking about Monopoly earlier, so there's like My Hero Academia, Monopoly. It's Monopoly for everything these days. But they find that really fun, and it really makes it a lot easier for people to be involved if they're not socially comfortable in that situation normally. What we're here for at the moment, happening International Games Month. We've been doing this since it was International Games Week back in 2016. This is really huge in our community. They really get involved and love it. So we do programs throughout the month, both passive and active, and we usually have a giant event on a Saturday during the month as well. Over the years, it's grown and changed. During lockdown, it was all online. So we were actually really happy that we could continue to offer things during that. We really celebrate our local community as well. So we have our local Quidditch team, MacArthur Weasleys, who unfortunately did not come back and group together post-COVID, but we love our local Quidditch team still. We also come together with local businesses like Iconic Nerd, who is local to us, who helps us run game rooms and that for this. There's a little picture up in the top corner there. They're usually a lot bigger scale. So this is one of our smaller scale ones out at a branch, but we often devote a whole room to just gaming facilities that's run by that person. During COVID, we went completely online, and we had online chess tournaments. We had online drag bingo. We had MCU online trivia, which was super well attended. We even had someone from, do you know, remember where they were from in America? Somewhere in America, and it was like,
did they say California, somewhere like that?
It was 4 a.m. their time, and they'd stayed up all night so they could come to online MCU trivia for Campbelltown Library in Australia. But good for them. And again, that was a way that they were socially connected because they were in lockdown as well. We have also currently, we actually have passive things like mini golf set up at Eagle Vale Library in the shelves. Obviously, safety-wise, we've got a lot of signage around that and explanation from staff. But yeah, so within the shelves, you can currently play mini golf at the library. And next Monday, we have taken our online drag bingo, and we're moving it to in-person, and we have Prada Clutch coming to do drag bingo with us next Monday night, which is exciting. We also do family board game nights, which is super successful. And we also do pizza board game nights because pizza really seems to bring people in. It's just always a winner. We do try different things every time. Kate's running Introduction to Catan this month as well, which is a new one for the library, but looks like it's going to be really successful. We're excited.
Yep.
Yeah.
So teaching people how to play, giving them the set to play with in library. Going to have little trophies for the person who wins each session, kind of thing.
So that's building really well as well. We've already had a little bit of a chat about escape rooms in other ones. So we've done a few. This is pre-COVID, and we're now looking at what post-COVID escape rooms will look like for the library. We've run a couple that were really, really successful. Ours are extremely immersive, which it sounds like everyone else's have been as well. We've done sort of not smaller scale ones, but quicker ones, because we've found that we've been able to move people through quicker. One of the first ones that we did was a Justice League theme one that we ran whilst we were also running a library open day for comic book week. So we actually had those down to 10-minute sessions with a 5-minute reset time. And then these two that I've got images from here were bigger scale ones. So the one on the left was a zombie themed one, and we actually built that also based around a local historical figure called Frederick Fisher. That's not an actual image of him, that's actually a staff member that we then I then edited the image of to look like an oil painting, but they were very excited to play that character. Staff love this because the room that we changed to do both that one and the Harry Potter one on the right, the back end goes on to the workroom. So for the zombie one, staff had great fun walking behind and just randomly banging on the wall and making zombie sounds whilst people were in the room, and they had a great time doing it. The Harry Potter one, some of you may have actually heard of it. It kind of went viral. It was originally only supposed to be for youth during book week. But it went viral to the point that we had to add 2 weeks onto the runtime and something like 30 to 50 extra sessions and pull extra staff. People were doing things like selling the free tickets online for $30 a ticket. We were having to try and shut that down. So obviously it was extremely successful. The thing that we have discovered about escape rooms that we've really loved as well, the last group was just talking about getting the tech team to trial it out. We've actually opened them up to council before we open them up to the public as an opportunity for team building. And teams at council have really enjoyed coming down and doing that. So we're looking forward to our next one. And we're working on that at the moment slowly, but it has been a challenge up. Yeah, it's a secret. It's been a challenge up until this point with us still trying to keep everything, the cleaning that we would have to do in between and resetting and keeping everything as safe as possible. So we've only just really started looking at how we can redo that. Trivia has also been a huge win for us. And again, a very immersive experience is what we aim for. So we've done Harry Potter, we've done Game of Thrones, Space, the Final Frontier for when we celebrated the anniversary of the moon landing. Historical with local studies round. We've also done just local history, and that was extremely popular. General ones, we also did staff trivia during lockdown, which was weekly and themed, and that's a little picture on the left there. And we ended up doing a cross LGA staff event during lockdown as well, which was a lot of fun. And you can see some of our backgrounds there. So everyone had to have a different background theme that matched the theme of the week. This one must have been horror. I'm trying to figure out.
I think this was a sci-fi one.
Oh, sci-fi. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So we had a little team of dedicated library staff that were building these each week. And it was a lot of fun. And it was really a good end to the week during a time that, you know, was quite stressful. So
there was a lot of good-natured ribbing to the person who kept winning.
Yes, yes, there was one person that did seem to dominate all. So we made them do we requested they do an entire round that week so that they had to sit out so someone else could win.
We still give them slack about it as well. It's been a year.
Yeah, they're too smart for us. And then we have Dungeons and Dragons, which I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, so I've the key facilitator for the Dungeons and Dragons. We actually have two different setups. We always do one shots, so it doesn't matter if a person attends 1 week or 1 month or the next. They're always going to be just individual one shots. They can bring their characters across, and they can participate in as many or as few as they want. We have exclusive access, which is for women, female identifying, non-binary, trans people, so also no cisgendered men. And so that one we're moving back to being online, as we've got a lot of people who are very interested in that, but aren't able to travel, can't leave the house for any number of reasons. We when we were running that during the lockdowns, we had one young lad who was 8, and so he wasn't able to travel because these were happening on Thursday nights. But he was very into it. And then the other option we've got is the all welcome, where any age, we aim it to be 15 years plus. Our dungeon masters are all volunteers from within the community. One of them is a high school teacher. We've got another one who's practically a professional dungeon master and runs their own Discord session, everything like that. And recently we've been getting upwards of 2 tables each time, and having multiple dungeon masters makes it a lot easier to do that. But for International Games Month, we're moving the all welcome to Saturday afternoons as well, to try and encourage more people to be able to come. Going to have a lot more self-managed games as well, and we've been having a lot of people who, like this past session that we had, there was maybe 4 people who knew how to play out of 12. So we split everyone up to make sure they were all comfortable and ran them through character creation, stuff like that. And one of the plans is to have an actual generic game 0 where we run through Dungeons and Dragons, character creation, basic rules, stuff like that. But that will be upcoming probably for school holidays or something like that coming. But yeah, we have a lot of people have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and we do say 14 plus, right? 15 plus.
15 plus.
Yeah, so we do say that, and that's the same for Anime Club actually as well. But we do, where we have people that are interested in it and very passionate about it, we do allow younger people to come because it is suitable for them technically. It's more that like
it's more so that they don't get talked over by the adults. So one of the players brings his teenage son with him, and so they play against each other. And it's interesting watching the parent-child dynamic when it comes to role-play games, because there's a lot of good-natured bickering, and I heard them ribbing each other for what their characters were doing. So it's a great way of family bonding.
Yeah, and the feedback that we constantly get coming back to the social inclusion is just, I literally had someone last week from our LGBTQA plus community say that, you know, during COVID and lockdown, so much of their connection to the community, because they didn't have that sort of support at home, that was external, you know, going to events and going to social things we've just had the Pride Picnic at Parramatta, going to things like that where you're building up your community. And that was very much smashed during lockdown. And that events like this where they're able to come out and socialize and start building up their group and, you know, like their chosen family and that sort of thing again, has just had such a positive impact on their mental health. And they were really thankful for that. And that's, you know, that just gives us everything. That's exactly why we do what we do. So yeah, we're really excited and proud and happy to keep going and keep building for the community.
With one person that was part of the exclusive access, they specifically were very soft-spoken and quiet going into it, but as soon as they got into their character, they were a terror in the best way possible. They were very outgoing. They loved putting on a character voice, everything like that. And as soon as we said, okay, that's it for today, they immediately shrunk back into a shell, but they kept coming back every single week. Month. So we have 2 a month. Yeah. And we get people keep asking if they can have more games. And so we're letting people bring their own groups in if they have them, where they just need space to play. because they can't do it at a person's house or such and that. So we have one group that comes every Sunday, and they take over one of our little rooms, and they just play the whole day away. And it's always interesting watching people stop at the door and just go, what's going on in there? The people seem to be having way too much fun.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that we've learned, is that we can't always do it ourselves. So our volunteers are amazing, but also, like Kate just said, just saying, yes, you can come and use our space is also really powerful, because it's giving them the place to do their own thing as well.
We've had the school teacher dungeon master has actually asked if he can let his students know who want to have D&D games of their own to put those at light room, going, as long as they're not needing us to supervise and run it, then sure, we've got space. They just have to be aware of everyone amongst them, make sure that they're not swearing or being antisocial to the people that are around them, and are okay if people stop by to watch for a little bit. And yeah, they're all pretty much okay with that.
Yeah. So that's about it from us. Thank you very much. Did anyone have any questions? I've actually closed the chat so that I wasn't trying to read while I was talking.
That's a really good strategy. Please join me in thanking Kat and Kate. And yes, there are a few questions that have come through, including how did your drag bingo go?
That's this Monday.
The one in person.
But you've been doing it online, haven't you?
Yeah, the one that we did online was extremely successful. I think we had like 60 people attend the online one. And most of them were actually from our local area, which was amazing, because often when you have things that are online and on Eventbrite, I'm sure every library experienced this, and like we did, we had people coming from America and stuff like that. But actually for the drag bingo one, I think the furthest afield we had was Goulburn, and I think we had someone from inner Sydney. So that was a really nice surprise. Actually, I don't know if the timing didn't work out for overseas people, but it was extremely successful. And we're using the same person, because they actually do a lot of work in the Campbelltown area. So we're using the same performer for Monday, and we're excited to do one in person and see how that one goes. But yeah, it was very good.
Any kind of community pushback on that?
No, not so far,
that's much nicer and safer for everybody. And there's another question about, how do you police having no cis men in your D&D group?
That's for just one of our groups, the exclusive access one.
But how do you make sure there aren't?
So it's promoted that way. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so it's promoted specifically as with the first lines of the promotion, and it's promoted at the exact same time as the All Welcome, and it's specifically, this is for this demographic of person. We require people to register through Eventbrite, so we know who's coming, and we can monitor that way. We can also with ages as well, we can monitor to make sure that we don't have very young kids coming who aren't being supervised, because we don't want to risk them being, as I said, talked over or intimidated out of the hobby. So
also wording in the reminder emails for that go out before they start, and I know there have been situations where staff members then had to have conversations, or we've reiterated that in a message at the beginning before the group has started as well.
Yeah, and generally people, because we have the 2 different sessions each month, people have been very good about knowing that if they're not part of the demographic for the exclusive access, then they're more than welcome to come to the All Welcome. As can be expected, to the All Welcome, we do get a fair few more people, because it's we have couples coming, family coming, and so the father would be excluded from the exclusive access, because but not excluded from the All Welcome, so they tend to just come to that. And so I think, yeah, before I started facilitating it myself, we did have one person who, it was more their attitude than their person themselves, who had to have a word, had to be pulled aside separately and had a word taken with them. And after that was addressed, I think they attended one more time where they were within the guidelines of what we expect from our players, and then they just didn't show up again.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're if people have an issue with anyone in particular as well at either of the sessions, we've told it every time. We tell them, if you've got something that you need to ask us, even if it's in private, come and see us. We're not going to bite. We're not going to do anything that will make you feel uncomfortable. If you have a problem with something in particular, let us know, because we can't do anything about it unless you let us know.
Unless we know, yeah. In fairness, we haven't really had too many issues around that, which again, we're quite lucky, because I know that other people around us have had when they've run things like this. But yeah, we're pretty lucky.
Yeah, and we do have a staff member monitoring the games themselves. So if they notice something, then they can say something as a general statement at the time and then pull the person aside afterwards. The library ones are monitored by a staff member who can pop, if it's online, pop between the two rooms to pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, I just saw William's question pop up. We don't necessarily ask people to out themselves. There is some assumption around, if you're here and you've heard all these messages as to what this group is for, then we assume that you're here and you fit this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And we, even in the exclusive, in the all welcome, we ask for people's pronouns, name that they prefer to be called at the time. So we're not going to say, I'm sorry, last week you were Meredith, so today you're Meredith, you can't be John today.
We would never do that anyway.
We wouldn't do that anyway, but there's some people who have the idea that they have to be the same person every single time, and we make a point of going, how do you want to be referred to? And if they are gender fluid and switch between the each time we see them, we try to make sure that everyone knows to refer to them how they want to be referred, and everyone's really good about it.
Across all our programming, we try and instill, come as you are and tell us what you need, and that's what we'll do.
I think one of the key things is we're very fortunate with people who play, who are very open-minded to begin with, and so we haven't had major problems with anyone. Yeah, not even from the beginning, I think.
That sounds great, and it sounds like there's a lot of play happening out at Campbelltown. Please join with me in thanking Kat and Kate.
Cool, thank you.
We'll now go over. You will have noticed I've just completely skipped over discussion of Dungeons and Dragons, but I figure the other discussion's been going on, so that's okay to skip over that. We'll go on to Michael Adams from Public Library Services, who's going to talk about some drug info games. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks for having me, everyone. I'm coming here today from Bidjigal land and acknowledge elders past and present. So I'm going to be talking about drug info. So hopefully most of you are at least familiar with the drug info service, whether it is just by seeing the collection in your library or seeing a display or maybe actively engaging with our resources. But basically, drug info is a partnership between the State Library and New South Wales Health, with the idea that the public needed quality, free and accessible information about alcohol and other drugs. And where is the best place for quality and accessible information? It's in public libraries. So public libraries become the third and most important prong of delivering the drug info service, which includes a website, a collection of books and pamphlets, but it's not necessarily something that you're going to get asked about at the desk very often. So one of the most important aspects of the drug info service is the programs and activities that are available for the public to promote the service. So I'm going to take you through some of these programs just to show the value in gamifying your drug info service. So firstly, we have our standard drinks pouring challenge. This is one of the easiest and most effective ways of adding a game or an interactive element to drug info. So each public library service in New South Wales has been supplied with a resin kit, which contains 7 glasses of alcohol, not real alcohol. They're made up to look like a standard drink in various different types of alcohol, along with some empty label cut cups which correspond to those alcohols. And then the idea is that participants will get up and pour out a glass of water into the cup, what they think is a standard drink of that type of alcohol. And you can make the activity as competitive or as non-competitive as you like, but it's always a fun interactive game. So on the left here, you can see me presenting a standard drinks demonstration at one of our training workshops. This was a couple of weeks ago at Orange Library. And so these, yeah, hi, Sean and Beck. So it's always like a really fun part of the training sessions. And the best part for me is the discussion that it generates. So I guess the basic idea of the standard drinks exercise is to show that, you know, what you think is a standard drink may be less than what you'd expect, and certainly less than you typically get served in a restaurant or a pub. And so this has implications not only for those who are driving and, you know, trying to watch what they drink, but also in terms of health, with the Australian alcohol guidelines recommending no more than 10 standard drinks a week. But the idea of the challenge isn't to beat people over the head with the alcohol guidelines or make any assumptions of what you should and shouldn't drink. I'm not a drug educator, I'm a librarian. I'm interested in information. So it's more about just you know, promoting the service and showing you where you can get information about standard drinks and the guidelines to make an informed decision for yourself. And along with the standard drinks, the other really popular thing we have at our workshops and popular with public libraries is the beer goggles. So these, we have beer goggles in two strengths, one designed to mimic being under the influence of about 0.05 blood alcohol content, so right on the legal limit for driving, and then the stronger versions, which is 0.12 to 0.15. And again, it's not about delivering a scolding lecture, it's about starting a conversation and a way to promote the information available in drug info. And they're also really versatile in terms of gaming, because, you know, really the only limit is your own imagination, whether you want to have a simple catching and throwing exercise, having beer goggle soccer or cricket, running an obstacle course, beer goggle Mario Kart, or another, you know, online video driving game. Some other ideas: drunk texting, drunk nappy changing. There's a range of ways that you can incorporate beer goggles into your programming, and the only limit's your imagination, with the caveat that there are a couple of health warnings. I wouldn't use them with any trip hazards nearby, and it's recommended not to wear them for more than 10 minutes at a time. Along with the beer goggles, we have a board game, so it's called Big Night Out, and it is targeted towards a youth audience, so an adolescent audience, with, you know, discussions about going to a party, or, you know, having common issues that adolescents go through. So that includes not only alcohol and other drugs, but, you know, sexual behaviors, consent, other, you know, common scenarios relating to peer pressure that adolescents face. And the gameplay is designed to generate discussion, so around all those different areas. And just to give you an example of how it works, there's a number of different cards incorporated into the game. So we've got these power cards, which is just trivia questions. So in this case, it's a true or false about driving while under the influence of cannabis or amphetamines. There's these pressure point cards where you can either gain or lose points depending on your behavior in response to you know, so here you've decided not to have alcohol tonight and you stuck to your decision, so you get extra points. If you lie to your parents about where you were going on a particular night, you'd lose points. And then finally, just some scenarios. So, you know, what you would do if you found a friend passed out at the party from drinking too much. So again, it's generating that discussion while playing a game. But it doesn't have to be a board game or some elaborate activity. You can do a lot with really simple methods of incorporating gaming and interactive elements into drug info. So this is one of my favorite examples. On the left here, you can see this was done at Gordon Library a couple of weeks ago. So during the HSC period, they created an online quiz accessible via QR code and put these up on all their study desks with questions about alcohol and other drugs. And if you completed the quiz and took it up to the desk, you could receive a drug info show bag. So over the month that they had that running, they had 50 completed quizzes and handed out 44 drug info show bags, which I thought was just an outstanding result. So good, in fact, that I decided to take the idea and create our own online quiz. This is available to download and display at your own libraries via the Public Library Services website. And it just shows you how easy it can be to have that interactivity. And school kids are always looking for a way to procrastinate. So, you know, give them an easy way to do that with a valuable message at the same time. And that's an example of some of the great ideas we were seeing from public libraries. So we've provided a number of resources and ways to start your drug info programming, but public libraries have really, you know, taken that and done some amazing things with it. So we wanted to create a place where all of our resources were included in the one spot, as well as showcasing some of the best examples of public libraries. So this is our drug info activity booklet, which includes information about the standard drinks and the beer goggles and all the different programs we run. There's also a section on gaming, which not only includes what we've talked about, but some online resources. So there's a platform-based online game that you can access about drugs and alcohol, various other resources available online. And again, just some case studies from what public libraries are doing. So there's a number of ways to get involved with drug info programming in your library. This is our new program, our new drug info pop-up. You can see the iPad here has the other element of interactivity with the drug info service, which is our drug fact finder. It may be stretching it a bit to call this gaming, but there is a quiz elements involved, but it's just colorful icons. It stands out and has that interactive element. So the drug info pop-up comes with the board game, the beer goggles, a resin kit, and the beer goggles and board game are also available to loan from the website. So if you would like to know more, please go to the Public Library Services website. If you go to the drug info section there, you can see information about the pop-up. You can download an online version of the drug info activity booklet, as well as links to online order forms for loaning beer goggles and the board game. And please get in touch with me if you have any other questions about what I've talked about today or any other thing to do with drug info. I would love to hear from you. So I will stop it there.
Thanks very much, Michael. Great to hear the different ways people can use drug info as part of the gameplay in their library and different ways of connecting with the community as well. Any questions for Michael, please ask them through chat. I had planned a slightly longer general discussion session for this, but I didn't want to cut people short either. It would be great to hear briefly from how people, actually, I'm just going to mute the recording